everybody. How are you? I've missed you. Every time I miss a week, I miss everybody. Where are you joining us from? Would love you to hop in chat. I am so excited about today's webinar. I tracked this guy down when I saw him on a leadership call. I don't know, Rob, a month or two ago, I think it was. And I saw a small, like 5-minute interview of you. And I think within an hour, I was like blowing you up. I want to interview you.
That's Facebook stalking, isn't that right, Via?
I think I did all the above. Who knows him? Who knows him? Who knows him? And I'm relentless when I decide I want a guest on. I did it last night too. I have some really amazing guests coming on, you guys. Anyway, my name is Via Williams. Welcome if you have not joined us before, and if you have, welcome back. I love my crew of regulars. I am with Ben Kinney Agent Training and Place and Ben Kinney Companies, and we do these every single week on the Pivot Shift Ahead page and on YouTube and on Zoom. And we just want to spend an hour pouring into agents and training agents, and that's what we do. And so today, I could not be more thrilled to have Rob Tucker with us. The story is, like I was saying earlier, I saw Rob on a national call right after the Tokyo Olympics. And what was amazing is Rob is a real estate agent and productivity coach who has a daughter who won a silver medal in the Olympics. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And her name's Mary Tucker. We're going to learn all about Mary. And I just found myself both as a parent and as a business leader and a coach and a mentor and all of those things. I found myself asking all these questions like, how do you raise a champion like that? And I wonder how that translates into Rob coaching his real estate team. And I wonder how that translates into business leadership. And, and then I circled back and I thought, I bet you guys got some good parenting advice. And I had so many questions and I'm like, I need an hour with Rob. So that's what we have today. And I think what's cool about today is that normally we're so tactical, I'm like, how to door knock, how to, call on expired listings and FSBOs. And today, Rob, what's cool is that I feel like it's both. I feel like it's both inspirational, motivational, and tactical. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I am honored and happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled you are. And we're gonna have you walk through your story in a minute. But before we do that, would you mind giving a brief introduction? I know you're in Birmingham, Alabama, but giving a brief introduction and maybe kind of letting everyone know what you do, and then we'll just start at the beginning.
Sure, absolutely. I was military prior to real estate, had an internet company that was part of the dot-com bust and, ended up bankrupt and broke. And then called my mom one day and said, hey, guess what? I'm going to get into real estate because it's easy. I've watched you for 20 years do it. And, it's kind of dead silent on the other end of the line, right? And in a second, she said, well, your company just went out of business and you're homeless and you don't have a car and you don't have any money. How are you going to do that? And then I said, well, can you loan me the money to take the class? And by the way, I'm going to move back to Charlotte and can I use your spare bedroom? Luckily, as moms do, right? She said, absolutely, which is kind of interesting because it is part of the program, right? And part of what we're talking about. But so ended up moving back. She did lend me the money to take the class, started real estate, was bartending at night, and ended up doing about 12.5 million my first year.
Oh, that's massive. That's a lot. That's a big first year.
It is. And so at the time, KW was not in Charlotte. Keller Williams was not there. And so I was with Remax at the time and then ended up building that team to about $60 million in 3 years. So. And
that was what year, Rob?
That was so I started in 2000 and then 2002.
So 60 million in 2002, everybody, is probably like 150 million now, I would guess. I mean, how many units was that in Charlotte?
It was, if I remember back right now, I want to say that it was right at 100. I think it was 92 units.
Well, you can do the math. I don't know that, maybe not 100, but it's a lot. That's a lot of,
yeah. But it was a great learning experience. But then because of that, I ended up getting a phone call and it was from the regional director of the Carolinas, and I hung up on him twice before I agreed to go and meet with him and just have a cup of coffee. And I heard about this cool thing, and ended up agreeing to put together the first ownership group in Charlotte. So was the first OP for the first 3 market centers there, which is South Park, Ballantyne, that little itsy bitsy one, and then also University.
So for all of our guests here today, when he says OP, what he's referring to is he was an owner investor and ran the day-to-day of the brokerages.
Or at least found the good people to be able to do that.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, exactly. So then ended up moving, built another team, had the same results actually in 3 years, did the same thing in Colorado, and then ended up moving again to Florida when I went through a divorce. And my wife ended up moving to Florida with the kids and didn't think I was going to go. So I did, and sold the team that was in Colorado, moved there, and then started a team there and had the same results. And it was just, great experience, but it also made me ask that question at times too. It's like, okay, if I can do this in 3 places and have the same results and have predictable results, what can I do to help other people do the same thing? So I started teaching and trying to put together courses and coaching and things like that. And then got into that. And then I'll skip the 6 years before here because I know we'll go back to that. But last year I had an opportunity to come to Birmingham, and we were going to move after my son graduated from high school, but then COVID hit and everything went virtual. So we said, well, we always wanted to go to something that has mountains. We were in Sarasota, Florida at the time. And we decided to take a look around. We were looking at Knoxville, we were looking at Chattanooga, and we were looking at Birmingham. And then Kathy Wheeler, the operating partner here for the 5 market centers in Birmingham, said, well, would you be interested in coming and launching and running our productivity coaching program for all of the market centers? And I went, that's yes, absolutely. So we moved. Wow. Today is 1 year anniversary that we've been in.
Well, congratulations. Today's my anniversary too. It's my 3rd year at Kinney Companies today. So we both have anniversaries today. How fun. Yay. That's awesome.
Well, happy anniversary, Via.
Happy anniversary to you too. It's always a feeling of accomplishment to hit those annual milestones, I feel like.
It is.
Well, that's incredible. So, so you have 2 kids, you mentioned it. You have a daughter and a son. Your daughter's older.
I do.
I think a good place to start, based on getting to know you, would be, you're raising these kids and you kind of fall into high school, and Mary, your daughter, is a horse addict, right? She's totally into horses. Do you want to start there and kind of walk us through what the last 6 years have been like of your life?
So it's interesting because Mary picked her high school because they had an equine program. They had a horse that you could go and ride horses for 2 periods.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Me neither. And she said, well, and she was competing in hunter and jumper at the time. And she said, I want to go to Sarasota Military Academy. And it's a charter school that's a JROTC military academy. So they're wearing uniforms every year, which, or every day, which is kind of interesting. You don't stay there, you don't live there, right? But it's a charter school. And it's really interesting because they have different programs. But the reason she chose it was because she could take horseback riding lessons as a high school class. Okay. And it was just, okay, all right, well, you go right ahead. And what we also did when she got accepted and she started, we said, you've got to find something else to do, because this is what you're doing in a classroom. You're also doing things after, but find a club or an activity or something. And she looked around and she chose the rifle team, which is like, all right, let's go.
It's totally random though, right? Like
it was. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was, I think what's funny is I think she did it because her mom told her, you can do anything, but don't join the rifle team. And so, yeah.
Okay. She's a teenager.
Yeah. When you're a 14-year-old girl, sometimes when somebody tells you that you can't do anything, you're probably going to say, oh yeah, right. All right.
Right.
Yep. So she did. And it was basically to meet people. And it was great. That first year, I had nothing to do. I didn't know anything about it. I went to a couple of the matches, but she was never a scoring person. So they usually take the top 4 or 5 and they put them on a scoring team. The rest of them get to go shoot in the match. And this is air rifle, by the way. So it's pellets.
Okay.
And they, but she was never a scorer. She was never any good. She really didn't practice and she didn't take it seriously. And she was just having fun with it. And then sophomore year, we got a phone call and said, well, Mary can Mary continue? And we said, well, sure. And at that time, I think the only reason they asked her to continue is because they knew that we could afford to buy the equipment for her to be able to go from this basic freshman team to the sophomore team. And so she did. And again, but it was the same thing. It was, it was all right, I'm going to go do this, but never a scoring person. And then the shift came, right? When about halfway through sophomore year in February, 2 of the girls, and, I think we mentioned this the other day. Anybody have 15, 16-year-old girls?
Well, I have an 11-year-old girl who's going on 15.
Okay. All right. No, you haven't seen anything yet. Let me tell you, 15, 16-year-old girls.
Oh, don't even.
Are mean.
Yeah. Well, it's already starting, my friend. That's a different webinar.
Yeah, it is. That's a whole different thing. But so 2 of them actually told her, you ought to quit. You're never going to be any good. You should quit. You're not going to do anything with it. And so she came after school and said, hey, Dad, will you build a range in our warehouse? We had a warehouse at the time. And I said, a range for what? And she said, for rifles, so I can practice. How do you do that? And so we got on, we did some research, got on Google, found a 2x4 frame that we could put up that was safe to be able to put in there. And then for 2 hours a day, every day for the next 30 days after school, she was up there practicing. Because she, in her mind, kind of the same thing of picking the rifle team at the same time, she said, all right, watch. And so she came back and she was number 1 on the team and ended up continuing that process. And 30 days later, she won the state championship. And at the state championship, she met a 2-time Olympian that was up there, this is the ironic part, by the way, that was up there to watch one of the girls who had told Mary to quit to potentially become her coach. So Mary won that event, and all of a sudden the coach is saying, well, I want to work with her instead. So she did. And then 30 days after that, Mary did her first national match. And it was a 40-shot standing air rifle match. And it was at Fort Benning, Georgia. And it was the U.S. Nationals. Day 1, she was in 5th place. And we're talking, 16 years old and had never been in a match like that against collegiate shooters, against Olympians. As a matter of fact, in 6th place on day 1 was the then current gold medalist from Rio. Wow. So kind of interesting to see that. And that was kind of the change of when it really got serious. Day 2, she got a little bit nervous. She didn't know what she was doing on day 1, right? She didn't realize that, oh yeah, she was just doing her thing. She was following her process.
I gotta believe it's a little bit of a mental sport,
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's huge mental pieces, because
what separates the Masters from not is that mental game. And if it's her first big tournament, of course she got a little shook, right?
Oh yeah. Once she figured out, wait a minute, I'm in 5th. Oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be able to do this, right? Well, and just to put it in perspective, by the way, this sport, the air rifle part of it, it's at 10 meters, which doesn't sound far, right? 33 feet, but you're holding a 10, 11 pound rifle. And actually,
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to pull up a photo right now.
Wait a minute. Let me see if that's on there. So
yeah,
by the way, there's Mary. Yeah. Olympic team. But you're holding that rifle. There's no support. There's no sights on it. And the 10, to score a 10, is the tip of a number 2 pencil at 33 feet.
Can you guys see
There
that?
you go. Yep. And that's air rifle actually right there. So you see that little thing that's 33 feet away, and she's got to hit the center of that black dot. And the center, so it scored from 10 to 10.9 and then 9.9 down. But if they hit a 9 something, it's very difficult to catch up. So she has to hit that tip of a number 2 pencil from 33 feet away 60 times in a row.
I can't even imagine.
It's unreal.
And I'm looking at all this equipment, and for those of you that are driving and just listening to audio, it almost reminds me of the behind the scenes of those animated movies where, you know, they have those whole suits on, where, I mean, it's almost like a green screen. It reminds me of one of those action scenes. This is what her. Wow. And I'm also seeing, by the way, Rob, going back to something you said, like that is a lot of equipment. It doesn't look cheap. We'll get into that in a bit. But
oh gosh. Yeah. So after this national match, right, she says, wow, I think I can do this. I think I can do better. And she said, well, I think I want to try to shoot in college. And I said, what do you mean shoot in college? Yeah, they have rifle teams. Really? They do? They're Division I teams. There are 32 Division I rifle teams in the NCAA. And she said, they give scholarships, Dad.
Like all in. All in.
In that case, let's go.
100% on board.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny because I didn't realize what saying yes to that meant. She said, okay, great, thank you. By the way, we have to travel for the rest of the summer. We have to travel for the next 2 months because I've got to go to schools and camps and do some national matches and things like that. And I went, you know, I work, right? Or at least I'm trying to do that. Yeah. And so, and she said, well, you know, that's the way to do that because I've got to get seen and I've got to learn and I've got to do all these things. And she said, oh, by the way, I need to go ahead and upgrade my equipment because my coach said I need to upgrade my equipment. Okay. So what's that mean? And she said, I found an air rifle that's going to really be good and it'll be the last one that we need to buy. Whole different story, you know, down the road too. And I said, okay, how much is that? She said, well, $5,000 for an air rifle, a pellet rifle. Oh, okay, we can do that. See, Mary's little. So there were a lot of things and equipment that just didn't fit because she's little. And so we did that. And then she said, and by the way, they shoot 22 rifle small bore in college also. So I've never done that and I have to start that. Well, what's that mean? Well, you know, I've been told that I need to start with this rifle. So we bought the rifle and that one was about $2,500. Not bad. I said, all right. Yeah. She went to the range one day and said, this is not going to work. I need this one. So we did the next one. So well, how much is that? Well, this one's $5,400. Okay, at least I can sell this one and, you know, put that, okay, that's great. And that didn't work. And she said, Dad, I found it. I found the one that matches my air rifle and is the same kind of size. And I said, all right, well, show me that one. And she did. And we looked at it and the base rifle was $10,000. And I said, are you sure you're serious about this? and she said, I am. And oh, by the way, I need all of the accessories that go with it. Well, how much is that? That's another $10,000. And
that's the suit we saw and all the things that we saw.
Oh, no, I haven't gotten to the suit yet.
Oh, perfect.
That's just the rifle. So then and that was the next one. She said, I need a custom suit. And I said, well, what is that? Well, it's $2,500 and we have to, you know, we have to get it fitted and we have to go and get it measured and all of these things. And I said, you're sure they offer scholarships, right? You're really? And so it's like, yeah, we did it. So we did it. And and I think the reason is because we kind of saw something that she became passionate about and that she loved doing. And I will tell you this is interesting because, you know, you hear those things about, you know, fall in love with something and do that and do it well. She wasn't there yet. And she said multiple times over the years, she said, you know, some days I hate this. I hate this sport, because she's gone from, those 2 hours a day to now she's 6 or 7 hours a day. And that doesn't include the physical workouts, the training, the nutrition piece. And not to mention, she's a collegiate student. So she's got classes to do too. So we committed, we jumped all in. We said, all right, if you want to do this, then we are behind you. We will support you, and we'll do what needs to be done to do that. And I ended up selling the team and kind of distributing all of the leads and all of the stuff that we had built over the past years. And we traveled for the next year, all the way through her junior year. And she got better and better and continued to dive into it and really become a student. She would go and she would bring up YouTube videos of international competitions. And during her routine and her workout of the day, she would put that on a TV or on a computer and follow along with all the commands that they were doing. And so she was practicing these World Cup events and these international matches before she ever got to that level.
So I want to stop you there, because I'm really, really curious about this. I want to rewind a little bit. This is probably a parent question more than a real estate question. Had Mary displayed this pattern before with anything, where she was just, maybe with horses, where she was just all in, intense, kind of went from 0 to 100, or was it kind of outside of the norm? You're like, this is it. This is different. This feels different from everything. Or you're like, no, this is more her pattern. Like she finds something and she latches on.
Not like this. No, it was, she did various things before. I mean, she played volleyball, and, she did the hunter jumper and the horses, and she would seem pretty serious about them, but it wasn't this. This was definitely different. That was, those things, she would go out there and she would not take a volleyball and go practice setting and things like that. Whereas this, she would not only practice, and I know, we'll go over that piece of it, the mental piece of it and that process, but she would practice breathing, which is different in this. How do you breathe? And she would break it down to just the itsy bitsy pieces. How do you stand? Where does your foot go? What's the angle? Where does your hip go? And she would do this process, and she would practice all of these pieces just thousands of times. And that was different. She didn't go out there and do anything else like that before, but something clicked.
So when she said she hated it sometimes, which is totally normal, and I think a really good life lesson, what did that mean?
I don't feel like getting up and doing anything today. I don't want to go shoot. I don't really, there were a couple times where she actually said, I'm not sure if I actually want to go to college for this.
Yeah.
But she did anyway, and she would get up and still practice. There were a couple of times where she took that week off, and we were thinking, okay, is she going to come back? And she did. And because I think at this time she was truly committed, but she just needed a break. She needed that recovery piece, and we let her do it. It's like, absolutely, go do it.
I mean, that right there, Rob, like that is actually really profound, right? We all need a break. And, it doesn't mean that the whole thing has to be thrown away, right? You and I, talked a lot about this, because I have a son who's a music performance scholarship, college junior.
Yes.
And, there's some parallels to this, and one of them is, you and I could never have made our kids practice the amount of hours that they had to practice to get to this point. My son plays the oboe. And from the minute he, by the way, begged me to rent him an oboe, same story, by the way, same prices, I'm not going to lie. I don't think, he tells me there was one period of time where he didn't do this. I don't remember it. He literally practiced a minimum of an hour a day from the time he was in 6th or 7th grade till now, and he's 20. And I never once asked him. It couldn't have come from me at a certain point. And he had to have gotten tired of it. To your point, I will hear him do the same riff 40 minutes in a row sometimes to get the fingering right and the embouchure right. And I've got to believe it's the same with Mary. I mean, it's just a fascinating journey, and they need breaks. Michael said, he goes, no, Mom, I have had a couple self-imposed breaks. You know, I did need to sit. I don't remember them, but.
Well, you're right. And you know, what's interesting too about bringing up kids in today's world, especially the high school level, and even before that, you know, it's changed since, you know, you're not near as old as I am. So, you know, when I was young,
You're my favorite today.
when, you know, when I was young, we didn't have the same, I don't know, activities or the same all year round competition schedule that they do now. And that's probably, I saw a statistic at one time saying that, what is it, 70% of the kids that do athletics from a young age quit by the time they're senior.
Oh, I bet.
And that's just, it's because they're not allowed to take those breaks. They need to be kids. They need to grow up. They need to be able to do some mistakes in there too.
100%. What's interesting now that I think about it, you just gave me an aha. Mary was a freshman. Michael, my son, he's really 7th grade. They were not young. I mean, that, you know, it's young, but they weren't 5. Right. So that is interesting, isn't it? There's some merit to that, they self-discovered, they both self-discovered and sort of yanked us. Hey, I want to do this. This is the thing. And I need these tools. And can you support me in that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating. So, I think we were in junior year. Sorry, I didn't mean to get us sidetracked. I just was caught by that moment.
So junior year, we traveled out to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs because there are national matches there. Fort Benning, Georgia, national matches, Camp Perry, you know, just all of these different places. And she started doing really, really well. And she started winning her age group because they're split into age groups, but then they also have an open division. And then she started medaling in some of the open division matches too. And so she got an invitation to actually move to Colorado Springs and train at the Olympic Training Center for her senior year. And she said, Dad, I get to go to the Olympic Training Center. You know, she's already made the decision. She's going, right?
Right. I caught that.
Well, great. I mean, when do we need to move you out there? And do we need to take things? Well, I'm too young to live on campus. So we all have to move. Wait a minute, what? We have to move.
Hey, what?
So, you know, and it's interesting too, because she looked at it, and the NCAA has, you know, certain requirements to get into, to be an athlete in NCAA. And there are 16 core courses, and we started going through those. And we ended up going through and talking to her counselor at the high school there. And she said, you know, if Mary actually took one more class online and did another course, maybe the first couple of weeks of in between junior and senior year, she can graduate a year early. And it was interesting, you know, it's kind of lucky with her counselor because her guidance counselor in high school was one of the assistant U.S. Olympic team track coaches. So she knew the process, and she said, absolutely, we're all in, you know, we will help you do this. So Mary ended up graduating a year early. We moved to Colorado Springs in between junior and senior year, and she trained for the next year at the Olympic Training Center.
So she didn't have to go to school because she was graduating.
No, she graduated. So it was interesting because here's what happened that year is she submersed herself in the Olympic lifestyle. And when you surround yourself with Olympians, something's got to happen. You know, it's that thing we always talk about. You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with and spend the most time with. Well, she was every day on the range with Olympians. She's going to eat lunch and breakfast and dinner with the Olympic team. I mean, imagine going in and having lunch, and not just in shooting, but she's having lunch with Michael Phelps. You know, she's having lunch with Simone Biles. She's having dinner with somebody else that's there. And you start getting immersed in that, and you start hearing that language of what it takes to succeed at that level. And it's different. It's completely different because it is a process. It's not the glory of what you see when we watch the Olympics. That's what happens after. And I think I mentioned this the other day. You don't win an Olympic medal at the Olympics. You win it by what you've done in the habits and the processes for the previous 4, 6, 8, 10 years. That's when you win the Olympics. And that's what we saw her do that year. So it changed that senior.
Hold on. Rob, that was incredibly profound. Would you mind repeating that for ourselves?
Which part? The whole thing?
I want everyone to soak that in, please.
You don't win an Olympic medal when you go to the Olympics. You win the Olympic medal by doing the activities, focusing on the processes, and developing the habits for the 4, 6, 8, 10 years prior to ever getting to your Olympic Games. That's when you win the medal.
It's really important for me to pause on that a minute. That is one of the most profound statements I've ever heard. You shared it with me on Monday. And everything I have believed in up to this point made sense when you described it that way, because I've always said to myself, to my people, if you put pressure on the process, the score will take care of itself, right? It's not my line. That's not my philosophy, right? And you and I got in this discussion because I got to thinking about Mary, your daughter, and my son, Michael, who is a college scholarship music performance oboist. And I started thinking about the amount of time him and I have tried to come up mathematically with the number of hours he's put into the oboe. And at 20, I think we're at 6,000 or 7,000 hours, right, out of the 10,000. And out of those hours, I can't remember, it was 99 point something % practice time to performance time.
Yes, spot on. And it's, you brought this up a second ago too, and I'd love to put this in real estate terms too, because we see this on a day-to-day basis in real estate. Is, you have the agents that come into real estate, and if they would approach it like an Olympian approaches their craft, because real estate is a craft. If we would spend as much time practicing our scripts, our dialogues, our presentations, for 2-3 hours a day, when we get to that one listing appointment or that one buyer presentation, we will win that listing appointment or that buyer presentation because we put in the work ahead of time. And that's where we won. We didn't win it by going there. We were following our process. We can control our lead indicators. We can control the activities that we do. We can't control the outcome, but we have to trust that we've done enough activities, built the processes correctly when leading up to finally getting in front of a client or getting on the firing line at the Olympics.
100%. Mary's air rifle competitions and 22 competitions and Michael's music performances, right? That's the equivalent of our appointments. Everything we do, I tell our agents this all the time, everything you do should be directed at, whatever, 1 appointment a week, 2 appointments a week, 5 appointments a week, whatever your number is, that is your moment. Everything up to that point is getting you to that moment. How seriously are you taking your moment on stage? How seriously are you preparing for that? That is the moment you live for in real estate. 100% of your pressure, 90% of your pressure should be on that moment, on that appointment. The appointment is the #1 leading indicator in real estate. Right. It's the end of our sales process, guys. It's where we close. We actually don't close selling the house. We close getting the client to commit to working with us, which means the appointments are a moment, right? And I just think this is such a profound parallel to real estate. This, Mary and to his lesser, Michael, and it's fascinating.
It is. It's really interesting, and you look at the activities that she did that year of that senior year. And it got to the point where she would wake up in the morning and she would be up at 6 o'clock You know, there's no school to go to, right? It's her deciding when to do what she needs to do. And her day and her process, it started before she got out of bed. So she would wake up and she would stay there for about 30 minutes and mentally do a match in her head. And she did this at night too. And then she would get up, she would do the things that she needed to do. And then she would go through mental preparation prior to going to the range. So she would be standing there, no rifle in hand, but just standing there looking, you know, doing her motions and doing her process. Then she'd go to the range and she would do it again without the rifle in her hand or anything else, making sure that her hips were in the right position, her feet are in the right position, her hands, her elbow, everything's relaxed, all of the muscles, using the structure of the body as opposed to using the musculature of the body, the breathing, the vision, just everything. And she would do that for hours before actually taking practice shots. And then when she got to that point, I would go and watch, and she would do what they call dry fire, which means that she goes through, and she would do this for hours without ever actually putting a real pellet into the rifle to shoot, or without ever actually putting a round into the rifle to shoot. She would dry fire and practice for hours, thousands and thousands of times. And then she would finally do it live. But it's everything from the breath piece of it, because she takes it, and it's interesting. And for those that are there, if you go on YouTube, you can actually look up when she won the World Cup in India a few months ago prior to the Olympics. And if you watch her process, and she's the dark-haired one, by the way, not the blonde-haired one, which they ended up getting the names separated. So, her back.
Tucker, also very young from the US. Like I said, 2 US shooters here in the finals.
Is that her?
19 from
That's her.
Kentucky.
I had it pulled up already.
Tennis with a low 9.9.
Sorry.
10.8 by Tucker, pulling away even further.
Highest score is a 10.9, by the way.
Right.
There you go. That's opposite names.
Really going. Applause starts behind them. Final shot, ladies and gentlemen, 24.
Goes faster and faster.
Behind Allison, 10.2. That's not going to do it. 10.4. So Mary Tucker will take gold. Allison buys the younger one, younger American today, settles for silver. What a big moment for sports judges.
Very calm for taking gold. Very calm.
And it's funny because, you know, Mary's the dark-haired one, but they put Allison's name under Mary and Allison's score under Mary. So yeah, so she was 19, by the way, at that match. But if you guys, you know, if you ever want to watch something and just watch a process, they have that from beginning, and she led almost the entire way. And so they focused on her a lot, but it never changes. You could go, they have 50 seconds to take each shot. And you could guess within 2 or 3 seconds, probably 1 or 2 seconds, exactly when she would take the shot. It never changed. And she was always the last one too. If you notice, Allison took hers, Allie took hers. And by the way, that was the other Olympian that went to the Olympics from the US was Allie right there. But it just doesn't change. That process is the same every single time that she does it.
I think that there's a lesson in there for anybody watching who has a team or is going to have a team, that one of our goals when we're in the team mode of real estate is to make sure that the process doesn't change. As long as the scripts and the listing presentation and the buyer consults are the same, and we send our sales force of 5, 10, 15, 20 agents out, if they're all doing the same material, then we can start coaching them, because then we know where the conversion points are broken. When they start getting creative, it's hard for us to know how to coach them, you know, because we don't know if they went off script to try to set the appointment and they have a front end conversion problem, right? Then we don't necessarily know what they did wrong. But if they're all using the same scripts and it's the same every time, then we can go back and we can lead a team much more effectively. So there's a really good parallel there, Rob, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's focusing on the same fundamentals that work, right? We've proven them over and over and over again. It's like we say too, the numbers don't lie. And when you focus on that process and you get and you master that process, the results are going to happen.
Yeah, and even not on a team, when you think about what you just said about Mary, right? Her, in a way, everything she does is to make sure nothing changes.
Yes.
Is she needs so rote, it's so natural that she can walk in with all that pressure and noise. I could hear music in the background, just all the stuff happening behind her. It is shut out, and she is ensuring that it's all the same. But in order to do that, I'm hearing mental visualizations, I'm hearing physical practice, I'm hearing dry runs, I'm hearing, I mean, there's just so many elements that go into that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been an amazing time, and we haven't even gotten to the Olympic trials part of it yet. Want to go there?
Let's go. Yeah. So she's in Colorado Springs. She's immersed, deeply immersed.
She is. So this is 2019. No, 2018. Yes, 2018. Wait a minute. What was it? No, it was 2019, right? That's when this was.
COVID. That was the year before COVID.
It was supposed to be 2020. And so, she went to the part one of the air rifle trials, and she ended up winning that. And so then she was set up as number one. And then she went to part one of the small bore trials, and she got third in that. So not a bad place to be, but she was a few points out of the first place for that piece of it. Well, December came around of 2019, and they had part two of the air rifle trials. And so she did that, and she won. And she ended up winning and by the way, she's only 19 at the time, right? So she won the overall, she won the junior title, and then she competed in the finals for both the open and the junior and won both of those at the same time.
I mean, winning the open, she's competing against everybody. I mean, ages, experience, everything. Wow.
Current Olympic gold medalist, Jenny Thrasher. Collegiate graduates. In rifle, they don't mature until mid to late 20s.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
She's a little different in what she's doing. And I've heard the comment that she's 35 years old on the line.
Oh, okay.
To compete. It's like she's 35 years old. So then, fast forward, and we're in the collegiate season. So this is now rookie year or freshman year at UK. So we're a year ahead, right?
University of Kentucky.
Yes, we're now at Kentucky. She got her scholarship, which that's a whole different, interesting process to go through.
It is interesting.
AA recruiting process as well. And she had, and by the way, here's why she went to Kentucky. Remember the reason she went to SMA? Well, that's the same reason she picked Kentucky, because she was looking at equine science. She was looking at becoming a trainer or something in the equine industry after college. And she went and visited University of Kentucky. She visited Murray State, and she visited Morehead State, because they all have equine programs. And then she wanted to visit West Virginia and TCU. And she was mature enough. It was interesting. She visited Kentucky, Morehead, and Murray, and was supposed to fly to TCU in West Virginia. And this was an interesting part of maturity. She said, "Dad, I just don't think that, I don't get the same feeling from the coaches or the teammates that are there. And I don't want to spend their money." So she canceled the trips to those.
Wow.
Which I thought was just extremely mature, because it's in a collegiate recruiting experience for that kind of thing, you're put up on a pedestal, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, you're awesome," and that kind of thing. She said, "I'm not interested in that. I don't need to go."
And, partly it's a very mature decision, because she's taking unneeded pressure off of herself, right? She's pulling that off of the plate. Really smart. That's great. And she's also betting on herself.
Yes.
There's a lot there. There's actually a lot there.
There is, definitely. So she ended up narrowing it down, and then got the offer from University of Kentucky. She got the offer from all of them, but she chose Kentucky. And she just felt comfortable there. But the main reason for going was because of the equine science program.
Can I put my parent hat on again on this? You know, for any of our parents listening, I think that one of the lessons that Rob and I talked about out of this, because we both have kids that, you know, I don't know that oboe will ever make it as an Olympic sport, but both of our kids, you know, Michael used the oboe to get him into, he goes to UT Austin. He never would, the oboe got him in, to be crystal clear. He actually is not going to be a professional musician. He's buying right now to get into, to be a math major, a dual major. And your daughter is using all of this to be an equine major.
Yes.
And I think sometimes as parents, you know, we go to the, oh, okay, well, now she's going to have to be a professional shooter. Now Michael's going to have to be a professional oboist. You can use these passions of these kids. And by the way, you know, oboe will always be in Michael's life, as will music. I think shooting will probably always be in Mary's life, but they're using them as tools, you know, to get great lives, to just give themselves a step up. And so I think as parents, it's a great way to use soccer and lacrosse and, you know, all these things. Like they may not, you know, golf, they may not go on the circuit, but it's a really great way to get them into great schools and get them into these great life experiences, Rob, that, you know, that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
It is. And as parents, we've got to realize that they're picking their own path and that it's their life. It's their school experience. So let them do it. Yeah. You know, we're not going to school. It's not our school. It's theirs. That they may do something and they may choose something that just blindsided you. And it's okay. It will work out.
Sure. I just think I really got that out of our conversation that, you know, both, you know, especially Mary, I mean, she's using this so well. She loves it. She's achieving mastery. She's really enjoying it. And she's also like recognizing that it's just a great tool to get her other things too.
Absolutely.
She's very smart, very, very strategic.
Yeah, definitely. So she enters, you know, college. She does that. She goes to her first collegiate season. She ended up, setting a bunch of national records, and University of Kentucky was undefeated for the year. So she made the Olympic team for air rifle in December of that year. And in March, about the 13th or 14th, whatever that Friday is, we're sitting at Lexington, Kentucky, because the national championship for rifle is going to be the next day. And all of a sudden, we get this text message. Championships are canceled.
The world shut down.
It's gone. It just, everything shut down that weekend. And it's sad because those kids were there for 3-4 days, all shooting together and doing all their stuff. They would have been fine. And we didn't get to make the decision. The NCAA and SEC did. So that was that. But they were favored to win the national championship. She was favored to win just everything as well. And all of a sudden, big letdown for that. And so we went home. She took about a month off and, you know, kind of recovered, I guess, mentally. And the team came back and they said, you know, they came up with their theme for the next year, and it was unfinished business. Ooh. And so we'll get to that in a little bit. But here's the big piece that was also a letdown. Part 2 of the small bore trials was canceled. And so they didn't get to do that. And so for her, I think it was a blessing because she was in third, and the 2 girls ahead of her were much more experienced. And one of them was actually the current Olympic gold medalist, and the other one was a professional shooter from the Army Marksmanship Unit. They were both 1 and 2. So Mary's like, you know, she thought she could do it, of course. Yeah. And she may have, who knows. But so she gets to go into sophomore season, and they still haven't had it. They decided, by the way, once Tokyo was postponed, which that was the next letdown, by the way, of course, right? And all the, you know, so you're talking about back to back to back things.
Yeah, it's a reminder to everybody, the Tokyo Olympics was supposed to happen in 2020. I just want to remind everybody of that.
You got it. Yeah, July of 2020. And so you're talking about national championships canceled, part 2 of the small bore trials canceled, Tokyo Olympics canceled. So it was even up in the air if they were going to continue to keep the team that had already made it.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Because physically, I mean, that's what the crying shame is on athletes. You know, there's an aging that occurs and a process that occurs. You peak at certain times, and you know, and you match these milestone, you know, world championships, Olympics to that. And I mean, it shattered dreams. COVID shattered dreams, you know, for a lot of people.
It did, and still is, you know, quite frankly. And so she, you know, she went through the summer, and one of the best things in the world was that she got back to Kentucky for her sophomore year, got back with her team, and started in the process of competing again. And it's kind of that parallel of senior year of high school, where she surrounded herself with Olympians. Well, Kentucky, now she's surrounding herself with Division I collegiate athletes, and they have a dorm, by the way, that's all athletes.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
And one of the, actually, what's really cool too, is one of the men's Olympians is actually her teammate at Kentucky.
Oh, awesome.
So when you get two of them sitting there and all of a sudden feeding off of each other for the season, then you see some big things start to happen. And so they go through the year, and they do both air rifle and small bore in college. So she got the whole season of every week they were having a match, or almost every week. And so she did really well. If anybody ever goes and looks up, you know, the University of Kentucky rifle team and just check out what she did over the past couple of years, it's pretty impressive, because she won the individual titles in air, small bore, the all-around individual title, and Kentucky did come back and finish the business because they did win the national championship this year.
Oh, it's awesome. That's so awesome.
So then a week after that, they have second round of small bore trials, which is great timing. You know, it's surrounding yourself, it's putting yourself in the environment, it's working on those things. And she ended up on day one, she set the national record for small bore. So she ended up going from third to first, and then did it again on day two. And so she won the first place spot for both air rifle and small bore on the Olympic team, which, by the way, there were 5 people in the world who did that.
Amazing.
That was it.
Amazing. It gives me goosebumps as a parent, that like, you must have been so proud.
Oh, it was from afar, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no spectators in most of these things, unfortunately. And of course, there were no spectators in Tokyo either.
Could you watch this on video? Were you live, or?
The qualification was not filmed. It wasn't live. It was what we call dots on a screen. They have electronic targets, so they can project the screen, and all you see is a dot show up. So we got to watch that, and that, oh God, you want to talk about pacing? That was pacing. So it was just.
She's in the zone. It's worse on the parents, because they're in the zone, right?
Yes, they are. She has no idea anybody's around, and she's just, you know, she's followed that process and done it over and over and over, and the mental piece of it and going through it. She's already done it in her head, you know, hundreds of times. She's already been there. She's already won the gold medal. And that's what she, quite frankly, that's what she was expecting to do, because during this time, India happened, which is that little clip that you showed. So she won the gold medal there, and she's now #1 in the world for air rifle. So she's going into Tokyo #1. And so she was favored to win, and she didn't, by the way. She did make the finals. She ended up 6th in air rifle for that. But then a couple days later, and so did her teammate. And so there is a mixed air rifle team match, right? And they take the #1 from each country and they pair them together, and they shoot the air rifle match as a mixed team. So now you're not having just stress on you. Now you have a teammate, and it's bigger. They said, you know, there was an interview I listened to the other day, and they said, it's totally different. It's not just you competing by yourself.
Yeah.
It's you now having to step up and have a responsibility to your team member.
So I have to interject here, because we talk about this a lot in our organization. We will all let ourselves down, but most of us have a way harder time letting someone else down.
Yes.
And so when we're in a leadership capacity of some sort, You know, it's probably the most important accountability you can have, because, you know, I talk to a lot of individual agents who are ready to hire that first, you know, assistant. And I always have the conversation, are you ready for the ultimate accountability? Because you won't fail them. Once you hire them and you're responsible for your livelihood, you will show up earlier than you've ever shown up. You will stay later. You will push yourself more. Are you ready for that? Because, you know, letting someone else down is a lot harder. And so I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. But they ended up, it's a 30-shot pre-qual, you know, first round, a 20-shot second round, and then of course the finals. And they made the final 8, which is when you go to the second round, and then the top 4 end up, the first and second go for the gold medal match, and then third and fourth go for the bronze medal match. So they ended up in the gold medal match paired and going against China. So they were guaranteed at least a silver medal by going in there and doing what they did in the previous matches to get there. So they ended up with a silver medal and did fantastic.
It was neck and neck though, right?
Oh gosh, yes. It went back and forth the whole time. They were in the lead, then they were behind, then they were in the lead, and it was a heck of a match. It was a nail biter. And that is live, by the way. You can go and watch, you can pull up all of this on YouTube.
And so you were at home, you couldn't go to Tokyo. No one could go to Tokyo. So you're watching this at home. What was the reaction at home? What did that look like?
Well, seeing that it was 2:30 in the morning that we were watching it, it was great. And it was tired, you know, pacing, and we had
almost like a relief more than like a celebration. It's almost just like, oh, like
it is. You know, I think it was a relief going in saying it doesn't matter what they do, she's now an Olympic medalist.
She's already a medalist, yeah.
She's there. Now, what do they want to do from here? And it was amazing to watch. And I don't think that my wife took a picture, but I'm sure there probably were a couple of tears at that point in time.
Oh yeah.
Especially when they were putting the medals on. That was.
Oh. When did you get to talk to Mary after that?
Not for 10 days, because her focus now was on the small bore match.
Okay.
Which was coming up. So it was, nope. No.
Okay. She was in the zone. Wow. Okay. Got it.
Absolutely. So it was, and then of course she did the small more. See, now I can't even talk now.
Got you all flustered.
Yes, she did small bore match and she got 13th in that. So, you know, she turned 20 while she was in Tokyo, and then competed in the Olympics, and then flew home and took a month off. And now she's back at UK starting her junior year.
So what's next for her? How is she going to pursue shooting?
Oh gosh, she has got the most incredible passport that I've ever seen in my life. She has been all around the world, and it's interesting too. This is, you know, we talk about, you know, taking any personal, you know, issues or any personal ideas or opinions out of this. But you're talking about an 18 and 19-year-old that has put rifles in bags and traveled and gone through the process by herself in India, in China, in Croatia, in all of these countries. That is, wait a minute, I'm going to walk through with a rifle.
You're so right.
Into these, are you serious?
Crazy.
What? So it's just, so her schedule, by the way, just for this year is she will be in Lima, Peru. She will be back in Croatia. She will be in Indonesia. And there's one more as well. And I'm trying to remember where it is, but that is in addition to the collegiate schedule and in addition to being a junior in college.
And so she's keeping going, you know, is what I'm hearing, that she's continuing to shoot. Do you think she'll go to the next Olympics? It's in 3 years, right?
If I actually were a betting person, I'd bet she wins gold medals in all 3 of her events,
Well, so would I. So
yeah.
would I. I mean, I'm going to be her number one fan after this.
Oh,
I will
yes.
be tracking her. I will be following her. I'm transfixed by this story.
It's neat. I mean, it really is. But her goal is to go to at least the next two. And then, and she wants to win gold. And I think this was, you know, being favored going into the Olympics to be favored to win gold. It's kind of like the Simone Biles story, which I'm sure everybody knows, right? You talk about somebody that was favored, the greatest of all time in gymnastics. And all of a sudden she has a breakdown and she said, I know, you know, I'm not ready for this, which was brilliant on her part because she didn't get hurt. She didn't make that mistake that could have actually ended up tragic, right? And she knew, and she was mature enough, even though people gave her a hard time for it, to say, I need a break.
Even more proof of her maturity that she just didn't listen to the noise. Very brave.
Yes, absolutely. And so Mary now, since she didn't win the gold as a favorite, I think it's going back to that time where the girls said, no, you're never going to do it.
Underdog.
And she's got that focus again. What's interesting and what's cool though, is that it's not a 4-year time frame. It's only 3 years.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the next trials starting in 2 years instead of 4 years from now.
There's always a silver lining, and that is definitely it. You know, I mean, we missed last year, but you're right. It definitely shortens the time frame, which everybody likes.
It does. It really does. So she wants to go to it's Paris in 24 and then LA in 28. And I'm not sure which one after, but she could go to that one too. She will only be 28 years old.
Yeah. I mean, she won't age out for a while. That's amazing.
My slide.
Oh, I think someone's talking. Robin. I don't know what I'm hearing right now. I'm curious, you know, as we kind of wrap up, what do you think you did really well, and what do you kind of cringe at looking back at your role as kind of dad and coach and mentor and guide throughout this whole 6-year journey?
You know, I think what I did really well is allow her to choose her path and support her on that path, because it would not have been the one that I would have thought that she was doing. And being able to be in the position to do that and to provide that support. By the way, for those who don't know, every trip, every piece of equipment was paid for by KW Profit Share.
Keller Williams Profit
Share.
Amazing.
Yes. So I keep telling her I'm gonna put a KW patch on your suit one of these days.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did wrong is I probably didn't allow her to fail enough in some ways, because I would be very protective of who she was with. And if there was a boy that came into the picture that maybe didn't have quite the same drive that I thought they should have, the dad piece came out and caused some friction here and there as well. And so, you know, I probably should have let her fail more in some of the things. And that's probably, and that has led to friction. You know, it just has.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. I think a little bit as a parent, when you see such a bright future where you fail to let natural consequences take their place, and you intervene and try to engineer a softer landing, and you know, you try to impart the wisdom that you really only get by failing.
Yes, exactly.
And then we don't let him fail. And I've been there, my friend. You are not the only one, both as a parent and a leader at work, I would say.
Yes, yes. But it has been interesting. And, you know, it's kind of what we said the other day, and it goes back to that thing. If we as real estate agents and team leaders and leaders in this industry can approach it from an Olympic viewpoint. And what I mean by that is putting as much work on before your craft and practicing the basics and the foundations and the fundamentals and working on the processes and building the habits, then everything that we want to accomplish will be an Olympic medal in real estate.
I honestly can't think of a better place to end it, Rob, right there. I mean, that is incredible. I cannot express how much I got out of today. I really, really got out a lot today. Focusing on the fundamentals, creating those habits, winning the event at the practice and the conditioning and the lead up to the event.
Yes.
So many ahas, how do we support our people? How do we support our kids? And, what you did right, what you didn't do right, all of it. So helpful. Thank you for giving us an hour. I know for a fact, so many people are getting so much out of this.
Yeah, it is absolutely my pleasure. My focus now is to help as many agents succeed as I possibly can.
Well, I love that. How can people get a hold of you, Rob, if they want to give you, referral or talk to you more?
My email is robert@roberttucker.com. You can also go to rockstaragent.com and find me as well. And
okay.
I am very accessible. If anybody ever wants to call, 941-225-5185.
Okay, there you go, everybody. You got his phone number. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I know for one, you are programmed in, and I plan to use that. So hopefully we can keep talking, and I will follow your daughter very much now. I'm like I said, transfixed by this and mesmerized by this whole journey. And it's going to be really fun to watch her now, knowing everything that I know. So thank you, Rob. And next week, you guys, we have Catherine Rain. Really excited. She is a top producing individual agent, right? And we want to focus a little bit more over the next month on some high level individual agents, because there's so many of you out there. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week at noon Pacific time. Thanks, everybody.